So one thing I wanted to kind of get into was back to this concept of body image, and some of Ehret's writings. I think in the his physical fitness pamphlet, along with some other places, he writes that a vision of a rational physiology is it can be maybe some of the Greek statues and sculptures, and just sort of that physiology where it's not this overly muscular, it's just sort of a, for us it would just be sort of just a standard looking kind of physiology, but your history, a lot of the Greek influences really come from Egypt and the Egyptian paintings and statues and that kind of thing, and so that's something to look at. And so when we look at the Egypt, it's slender, so what we see is the slender physiology is sort of for a human would be more along the lines of kind of a human of a standard human physiology. And if we were going to try and construct a body image that was going to be rational, now this doesn't mean that if you don't match this, because there's not a lot of people that necessarily going to match that, depending on, again, where they're coming from. It's about understanding. But if we're going to try and cultivate a rational physiological aspiration, then we have to revamp how we look and think about human physiology, because what is not normal. So if we look at football players, let's see, it's like we've been conditioned to say, like, okay, well, this looks good. This looks good. Like I want this, and not, of course, not everybody thinks like that, but I used to think like that because I was a football player and I used to bench press my 300 pounds and was in the weight room every day trying to get a body like all these guys. And but the thing is, and this is what people want, but they're not looking at the lives of folks like this, the longevity, the way, what do these people look like when they're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Pictures that I've seen, if they make it that old. A lot of football players, I forget what the statistic is, but a lot of football players die in their 50s and 60s, and they don't do it too good in later years because their bodies are tore up. And but we look at we have a very superficial view of, like, oh, this is I want this, and then I'll get questions from people like, can I be a bodybuilder and practice a mucusless diet? I'm like, but that's just not what I mean. I can't even think like that, just as far as, like, that's not, like, we're talking about physiological liberation, and physiological liberation is also psychological liberation, and part of being liberated is letting go of the whatever you're that's the thing about the mucusless diet, is you got to be willing to let go of preconceived notions, things that you show up with that are from socially constructed norms. It's oftentimes is not going to apply here. So you have to retrain your mind to be more along the line of something that's more rational and more natural. So what I did when I got into the mucusless diet was I started looking at the world in a different way, and what I kind of realized was where I live at in the United States is the exception physiologically, is the exception to the rule in terms of physiology. With the arrogance of the United States and people from the West, oftentimes we want to impose what we think is normal to the rest of the world. So what that makes us do is when we see people that are slender, that are from what they like to call undeveloped or underdeveloped countries, well, they're malnourished, or they don't get enough food. Because we think that 24-hour Walmart and Kroger down the street where you can get whatever food you want to eat and eat all day and night, and Taco Bell and McDonald's and all this kind of nonsense, because we think that's normal, and physiologies that come out of that is normal. When we start seeing people that have real human physiologies that come from a tradition that's more in line with what a human probably should look like, that is not overly acidic, and what I started doing was watching documentaries, like National Geographic documentaries of people from Africa and different, in desert regions and just all parts of Africa, and there's a wide range of physiologies, and there's certainly folks in Africa that and indigenous folks that's not a whole lot, but some that do have more starchy diets, and their physiologies have gone along the ways of a mucus type. And then there's some that are more one-sided meat eaters, and they would be a little more acidic. But in general, what I saw was kind of a pattern of something that I could aspire to, a physiology type that kind of makes sense. It's slender. It's not beefy. It's not that there's the muscle that's necessary, and there's plenty of endurance, more than most people in the West, and plenty of all of that kind of stuff. But it's just a different way that the physiology looks. And looking people in the Middle East, people in India, just all over the world. I mean, this kind of slender sort of thing is more normal, and for me in the West, I had to do this kind of almost mental reconditioning, to make so that this looks normal to me. This kind of physiology is what looks normal to me now. When I look at Brother Ehret, I mean, his physiology matches more of this sort of from African, indigenous African people kind of physiology, and so that back to nature kind of physiology is going to be along those lines, going back to going back to something that's not slender, and so we're not talking about emaciated like a Holocaust type of victim, but we're not talking about like this kind of big beefy football player, or this sort of Western kind of thing of somebody that eats like say Floyd Floyd Mayweather, that goes and eats a bunch of McDonald's every day and stuff, and just is able to kind of maintain a certain look that people find pleasing. This is really back to nature, and when you're talking about back to nature, you're talking about back to where humans are from, where we're trying to get back to. And so that's my thing there, is that physiology is just a way for us to understand what we're dealing with. And